At page 25, it says, there is a solution. Almost none of us like the self-searching, leveling of pride, and confession of shortcomings, which the process requires for its successful consummation. It took me a long time to understand what they're talking about here. First of all, in what process? What does this have to do with getting sober? And I realized it has nothing to do with getting sober. You get sober by passing out long enough. You know, just go see your HPD, right? Your higher power department. They'll get you sober. Slap a cop. Yeah, no problem. You'll be sober real quick. What this process they're talking about is a process of escaping the bondage to my own mind. The disease of alcoholism lies in the mind, not in the body. It's in the mind. And the kind of thinking that whoever wrote down about that, imagining, see, that is the insanity. Now, what's happening is you're noticing that that's true. That's called self-searching. See, for a long time I remember for years people say, you know, crazy people, they hear voices. And see, I didn't believe I heard voices because I thought I was the voice. It's a very important point. Now I realize those thoughts come and go, and they come sometimes in the guise of voices, but I'm now able to hear them. I'm now able to realize what I'm thinking and feeling. But what it took was this process of, first of all, self-searching. I had to look inside myself and be aware of what's going on inside of me. Then the leveling of pride involves telling somebody else about it. Because prideful, ego-driven, Morgan the Magnificent, I'm the smartest man I ever met, I'm not going to tell any of you fools that I'm having these thoughts. Are you nuts? You might think badly of me. I mean, I used to pay a therapist $2 a minute and sit in his office and lie to him because I didn't want him to think badly of me. Okay. So we have to get honest, and we do that by the leveling of pride and the confession of shortcomings. That seems at first to be a weakness, to go to somebody and say, look, man, I'm crazy today. And my head's running 800 words a minute with gusts up to 1,200, and it's all crazy shit, and I'm just losing it. And to actually be willing to confess that to somebody else involves a great deal of faith and trust. And I didn't have any of that when I got here, I'll tell you what. And so over time, becoming part of the fellowship, listening in the meetings, I began to realize that I'm hearing my own story come out of other people's mouths. These people might actually understand. These people might have felt what I'm feeling, thought what I'm thinking, done what I did, and they aren't doing that stuff anymore. Maybe I should talk to them. And I began to do it. I became willing to do it. And as Chuck said, the willingness to go to somebody else, this is why we talk about a sponsor or a mentor or whatever, and go to the people that you trust, one or two that you meet in the program at first, and talk to them about it. You'll be surprised how much it helps them. First of all, everybody likes to be needed. And so I go to somebody and I say, man, I'm in crazy town today. Can you help me? It's all nuts. And that other person now becomes an agent of God because they can see what I can't see because they're not in crazy town. And so we help each other. We come back together, come back to sanity. And as you said, the fascinating thing about it is that these crazy thoughts will not stand the light of day. Before I even today, now, most of the time I have crazy thoughts and I know they're crazy. I can tell that, this is nuts. And the act of even thinking about talking to somebody about it is like, oh yeah, okay, I did that again. A lot of this is habit. See, there's a tremendous amount of habits of thinking and feeling that have been covered up by years of drinking and drugging. So now we're not going to drink and drug, we're going to discover, that's why the book talks about causes and conditions. I had habitual reactive patterns to life. All of them were rooted in fear and anger, and I had to expose those, acknowledge that they were there, and in so doing, oddly enough, just that acknowledgement, they begin to get better. Okay, go down to there's a bar called The Hop. I've heard it's a jumping place. It's up in Webster. I was sober when I started coming down here, so I've never been in that place. But I imagine it's like a lot of the bars I've been in, and you go in there on a Saturday night, and they're all, doing their deal, right? The mating dance is on, everybody's trying to get laid. They're drunk and screaming and having all this good time, and you shut the music off, and just before they bodily eject you from the building, you say, "Who in here's an alcoholic?" And not a single one of them will raise their hand. They'll say, "Get that some bitch out of here." Now I come into a room full of alcoholics. Now remember, these people at the hop are all drunk, right? So I come into a room full of alcoholics in the meeting, go, "Who in here's an alcoholic?" They all raise their hand. And nobody's drinking. Now I call that a spiritual paradox. I could not begin to get sober until I realized I couldn't get sober.
Right.
It's weird. Now I wrestled with that whole powerlessness thing and all of that shit for years, because I'm not powerless. I am, after all, Morgan the Magnificent, the smartest guy I ever met. I'm not powerless over anything, he said as he sat in a room with no doorknobs. Me, powerless?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, you have a question. This is what look, if I pull the alcohol and drugs out of that whole morass of restless, irritable discontent, all that self-pity, I mean, it just starts flooding in at first. It really does. I mean, I understand. I mean, first of all, I'd messed up a lot of years of my life, destroyed jobs, families, whatever. And I hadn't thought about it for a while because I've been drugging myself into oblivion. Now I realize, oh my God, I've burned up 2 decades. What am I going to do? So then there's like terrifying. It's like the impending doom crushes in. And there is a tendency to want to run back to the drugs and alcohol and feel nothing. This is why recovery takes a great deal of courage, and the willingness to walk through those feelings and work the program and talk about it one day at a time. I had to put time in the chair, as a friend of mine likes to say, and I just had to walk through it. And over time, things got better. The level of fear and anger began to recede. I began to understand what was actually going on in myself. I became willing to acknowledge these things in myself and seek this higher awareness. And I discovered along the way that I liked helping people. I liked being helped and liked helping people, and became part of the fellowship. And there's a healing power in the fellowship if I'm willing to let people know about me to know me rather than know about me.
Right.
There's a place in the book where it says the alcoholic, more than most people, I think that's key. More than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. There's the face I want the world to see. Mr. Cool, hip, slick, and cool, right? Got my shit together, don't ask me. And then there's this inner space where I'm basically terrified and enraged and confused and bewildered most of the time. And so who am I in all of that mess? Who am I? Am I this false self? Well, it turns out I'm not. That false self has to be punctured, deflated, so that I can then actually become authentic, real. So we go through it. So that's a valid question, and you're not alone. And I can tell you this, you will outgrow it if you stay sober and keep working the steps and trying to live these principles. The other thing that Chuck said, and I agree, is that, and I heard a woman say this a couple of years ago in a meeting, I loved it, it's never too early in your recovery to start practicing any step that begins with a 1. So 10, 11, and 12 are available to us from day one. Like prayer, like the admitting that I'm feeling bad, doing something about it. Step 10, searching for, selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear, beginning to be aware of it, see? And then helping other people. So those double-digit steps, you don't have to wait until you've done all this other work. It's okay to not create more wreckage as in early sobriety.